You're listening to Conversations Ignite.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today I'm joined by Jennifer Shaw, the creator of the Callum Walker series. Her latest installment, The Featured Veil, continues a powerful tale of magic, gods, and sacrifice with unforgettable characters and rich world building. We'll be talking about her writing journey, the inspiration behind her series, and what readers can look forward to next. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get into it. So what inspired you to create the Callum Walker series?
I'm a very big Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, supernatural TV series fan. And I was actually watching a show on Netflix, is an older show called Merlin. It was like a younger Merlin, and before he became well known, and King Arthur was young King Arthur before he became King Arthur. And I thought, hey, I have an idea. I wonder what Merlin would have been like before he became famous Merlin. Like, this is one rendition, right? So I just sort of did my own twist with a modern day spin.
Very interesting. So lots of different ideas to pull from. Can you give my listeners kind of the background of what the series is about?
Yeah, absolutely. So my series takes place, there's our world, our time. There's a coexisting magical realm, but there's a veil that separates us. We cannot see or cross this veil because we don't have magic. But these creatures from this realm that do can and have, and they've been the source of inspiration for our mythologies. My protagonist, Callum Walker, is a young man who was born with the ability to use magic. He doesn't know why. He's trying to make the most of it, and he gets embroiled in what's going on in this magical realm. And then through the series, we see him trying to figure out who he is, where he fits in, because he's too magic for here, but too human for there, and then master these abilities to survive. It's a very much of a coming-of-age, fish out of water, unlikely hero type adventure.
Sounds really, really cool. Now, how many books do you have in total?
I'm still working on the series, so I haven't reached the end. I know where I'm going to end the series. I just don't know how many books exactly it's going to take to get there. I have a fourth book in my series coming out June 1st, and I'm starting on to my fifth and plotting my sixth.
Oh, wow. So on your fourth now and all the way up to your sixth. That's very cool. Very impressive. Now, how long has it taken you to get to this point?
I've actually been writing for 34 years. I needed an outlet. My mom bought me a typewriter. Yes, that's how old I am. So my mom bought me a typewriter, and I started to just, write. It blew my mind that I could paint a picture with words. And then so I just sort of took off from there. It became a hobby, then turned into a passion, an obsession. Now it's just cheaper than therapy.
Wow, very cool. Now your background is in healthcare, correct?
Yes, I worked as an X-ray technologist for about 10 years.
Okay. Now, has that played into creating any of your characters or anything like that?
Not really my characters, but a lot of the injuries I've written into my books, I've actually seen firsthand.
Oh, wow, cool. So you've actually pulled some real life scenarios into your books from what you've seen.
Yes.
Oh, that's very cool. Now, can you share a little bit about your writing routine? I imagine it would be quite tough to, manage your family and write all these amazing books, because I'm sure it takes a lot of time to especially create a series like what you're doing.
Yeah, I because it's my self-care and it's kind of my hyper focus. I have autism and ADHD, so I can really get into it, and I've created for myself a block schedule. This is my first year that my kids are having a full year in school. Prior to this, I was homeschooling, so I can't make friends for them and teach them socializing without them being with other kids. So they went to school, which frees me up a little bit more to do more writing during the day. But I kind of stick to my rigid schedule of blocks. So this block I'm writing, this block I'm emailing, this block I'm fixing dinner, kind of thing. And but I'm always thinking about writing, even when I'm not writing.
Oh, that's awesome. So writing's has it always been your outlet ever since like you were little?
Oh yeah, ever since I started. I couldn't find anything I really wanted to read, and so once I started writing, it was just sort of like, this is me, this is who I am. I remember thinking when I was 16 that I wanted to become a published author. By then, I'd been writing for a few years, and I thought, it's never going to happen. It's a pipe dream, but it's my dream, and I'll dream it. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. In 2019, I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and I thought, I've never shared any of my stories. Maybe this is my special interest because I've been writing for so long. And I got brave, and I had just finished my first book's manuscript, and I sent it off to an editor thinking the worst they can say is it sucks. But if they do, then I know and I'll move on. But they came back and they said, this doesn't suck. You should publish. So 2 years later, I did. I published and I fulfilled my dream.
Awesome. So your first book in the series came out in 2021?
Correct.
Very neat. Now, as a writer, do you ever get writer's block?
Oh, everybody does. Yeah. I find the best way to get over writer's block is, a lot of people will say, just keep writing, just write like a sentence a day and stuff like that. For me, it's easier to overcome a writer's block if I can figure out what's causing the writer's block. Sometimes it's just I'm doing too much. Sometimes I'm forcing creativity. Sometimes the house is messy and I need to go and clean it. And then my creativity is kind of opened up. For me, that's my method. I will still write that sentence a day, even if I hate that I'm forcing myself to write, but figuring out what's causing it is the key for me.
Oh, gotcha. So figuring it out and then kind of just getting away from it for a little bit, doing something around the house or doing something just different is kind of how you get over it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, even though it's my self-care, my interest, my passion, too much of a good thing is not always good either. I mean, I love chocolate, but if I ate chocolate morning, noon, and night, I'd probably be sick of it after a while. So I'd need to take a break and maybe eat cheesecake instead or something. I don't know.
That's a good analogy. I like that. Now when did the last book in the series release?
The Fractured Veil came out in 2023.
Okay, so pretty recently. Now over time, you said Callum, is that how you pronounce the main character's
Callum,
name?
yeah.
So you said that Callum, does he evolve over time in your series?
Yep. He does more growth over the series than he would individually throughout the novel, although there is character growth in each novel. It's more of a longer arc of his development. And that allows me to introduce this world and explore his adventures a little bit more.
Oh, gotcha. Very neat.
Yeah, I think it's unrealistic to expect somebody to have a massive change in one novel.
Yeah, very true. So over the course of the whole series, you'll see the whole change. That's very cool. Now in the Fractured Veil, Column, he often operates alone before forming bonds with Jax. Is that how you say his name?
Yes, Jax.
So what kind of themes were you exploring through their relationships?
I liked the fact that they were polar opposites. I kind of envisioned Jax. I'm dating myself here, but he's kind of like Moose from the Archie comics. He's a good guy at heart, but he doesn't think things through and sort of, runs in there like a bull in a china shop and then what did I do kind of thing. But he's also very sarcastic and very joking, whereas Callum is very conservative, very reserved, very serious and stuff. And I think the two of them together kind of blended and they, brought out the best parts in each other. So Callum, throughout, spending more time with Jax will become less serious over time, a little more, joking with him and stuff. And then Jax will become a little more mature and not just, start to think things through and grow up, so to speak, even though he's a little bit older than Callum. So the important theme with this book is just trusting family, the importance of family and friends and having them in your life. And, not everybody is perfect.
Yeah, they can't say anything better than that. No one is perfect. I like how you use two polar opposites, because you always hear opposites attract. So opposites can learn a lot from each other, and it sounds like you're displaying that in the book right now.
Yes. And I loved their banter. Yeah, it was so much fun. I have 4 brothers, And so I had a lot of material to draw from. So, and I just remember, just recall like some of the things my brothers would say back and forth, and maybe they weren't the same type of characters, but just different things I'd say back and forth. So it felt very natural to draw to write this banter in between the two.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're pulling again from real life experiences. And I think when authors do that, the readers can really tell that it's kind of from the heart and can feel that in the book that they're reading.
Yes.
Now your series features entities like goddesses and demigods. How did you integrate kind of mythological elements into a fantasy world? Did you use sources, or how did you get inspiration for that?
Without giving too much away, there is a history about why the deities exist in my series. But I like to draw from things that people haven't tapped into a lot. Like, there's not a lot of stories about deities. You might find a few here and there. And I wanted to explore that avenue. And so there would be humans without power, without magic. And then there's this realm of all these beings who do have magic. Some of them use it, some of them don't. Some of them, you know, um, just some of them are sentient, some of them are not and stuff. But then there would be another tier above them. And then there's another tier above them. And there's, it's just, this is the way life is. Is there always somebody up above you and somebody more powerful? And there's tiers to everything.
It's very cool that you have um, integrated different aspects from a whole bunch of different ideas. Uh, I don't know too many authors, if any, that do that.
I try to be very open-minded, and I did a lot of research into different mythologies and different legends and stuff. I'd hate to have somebody see my search window. They might think I'm into the occult. But there's a lot of different things out there that nobody even realizes. There's a lot of mythologies, and some of it connects. um when I was writing in my third book, I have these deities, the Furies. They are the goddesses of vengeance and retribution. I also had these creatures, the Harpies, that we first see in the second book, and they show up again in the third book and stuff. And I created this relationship between the two, not realizing there really is in mythology, there is a relationship between the two of them. So that was just sort of a happy coincidence. When I found that out, I was like, oh, I must have known what I was doing.
It's so cool to see you integrate different aspects. That's neat.
I was just going to say, our world is not a closed system. We're very global. We're very connected. So just to select one area of creative interest or creative spark would be very confining, in a world where we are so interconnected.
Yeah, and have you gotten any feedback from different types of readers? Because I imagine that because you cross over into a couple different, I guess you kind of would say categories, a lot of different readers would probably be interested in reading it because it kind of crosses over.
I haven't heard anything about people being upset about that. I have heard a lot of interest about more along the lines of my world, the world that I've built, and my descriptions, and how it's very visual, and they can see it in their head as a movie, which is great because I see it as a movie too, and I just write down what I see. I've had more comments and reviews along those lines than I have about where I'm getting my ideas from.
Okay, cool. Now you said that you would like to see it as a movie.
Well, I do see it as a movie. When I'm writing, I see it in my head as a movie. I don't have to pay for those special effects. But if somebody wanted to make it into a movie, I would not be opposed to that. They just have to pay for the special effects.
That would be cool. The world that you have explained so far, it sounds like a really good movie. I think I would definitely go and see it if somebody if somebody did make it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people tell me that when I'm writing my visuals, my descriptions, my world, my action scenes, they can see it. And I've had a lot of people comment that this should be made into a movie because you can see it in your head. And I'm like, exactly.
That's really neat. Because sometimes you do have trouble when reading something trying to visualize it, but when you're that descriptive, it feels like you're in the moment when you're reading it.
Yes. And I know it throws a few readers off. They probably don't realize why. But I do write in first person like perspective. So it's like instead of they said or he said or she said, it's they're saying it now. And they says or he says or she says, it's in the moments. It creates more immediacy and stuff with the character. So that it's more like a script and you're there reading it.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Now, were there any challenge that you faced when you started writing about this magical realm?
Oh, just finding the time was a big thing because when I really sat down and said I'm going to write this, I wrote the first book. It wasn't a problem. Once I got into the second, it's like I really want to continue this on. I'm going to publish, and now it becomes less a hobby and a passion, and more of a now I have deadlines. Now I want to do this. Now I'm pushing myself, and it was harder to maintain that creative flair, creative spark to keep me from getting writer's block. Basically, it was a lot harder. So I had to come up with a system as well for that.
Oh, gotcha. Um, it seems because you could kind of envision it, I guess it was easy to start writing those first books.
Oh yeah. And like that's how I've always written is if I can see it in my head. I mean, the world I'm creating is there's no world. I can't just pull a picture up or look on a map and find, this magical realm. There's no Havishire's castle somewhere in the world where I can just say, okay, I'm just going to Google some images about this castle and get some images. So I had to, I had to do a lot of like just sort of looking in my head. I went looking at different images of real castles and fairy tale castles, and it's sort of a blending of the two. I loved that I got to go to San Francisco this past summer, and we went to a winery where it was built after a castle. I cannot remember the name of it, but it was it was a castle, and it was just so great to walk through it and just like, oh, I've got ideas, and this is awesome, and yeah, that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's neat. I never thought about because you just mentioned there is no map. So kind of when you're writing some other kind of story that's not in like a magical fictional realm, you can look at ideas and stuff, but because yours doesn't truly exist, you had to come up with it on your own and taking ideas from things and visualizing different types of castles, different types of worlds. That's very neat. I never thought about an author having to do that when they're writing fiction.
Yeah. I mean, some authors will travel, like if they're writing a story that takes place in, like, say, France, they will actually, if they've got the funds and, maybe they're renowned authors, best-selling authors, and they got those funds, they'll actually travel to France and scope out where they want to, the street so they can get an idea, take pictures, plot out their books where the people are going to be walking and stuff like that. I can't do that. I have to do it all in my head. I have to, I'll be like, I'm stuck. I don't know what the scene. I can't visualize it and stuff. I'll put my headphones on. I'll play my music. I'll go for a walk, let my mind wander, come back 2 hours later. It's like, I think I have a clear idea what I need to do. I can't remember my walk, but I think I now have a clear idea of what I need to do with my story.
Oh, that's neat. So that walk, and then you just you see it. You see it and go from there.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm writing, that'll happen. If I get into, I call it the writer's zone. I don't know if it's really a zone, but like I said, I was seeing a movie in my head and I'm writing. It's like, oh, my characters are stuck. I don't know. It's like, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. Let's see where this goes. And I'm just along for the ride. And I've gotten some really good compliments on those scenes. Those have been some of my best scenes in my books. Um, but there's other times where, I let my creative juices flow and it takes me places and I have to stop and go, what is wrong with me? I mean, that came out of my head. What is wrong? That's yeah. That's why I can't write horror books in the dark. I'll scare myself.
Now, is this series the only series that you've published? Have you written other books?
Oh, I've written hundreds of stories, but this is the only ones I've published so far. I'm writing another book kind of on the side, just sort of sometimes you get so immersed in one thing and then you're like, I just want to try something else, but I'm still working on my Callum Walker series. I'm just also doing this other project on the side.
Is that hard to do? Kind of writing two different stories at once?
No, I can shift pretty easily. When I had originally written my first book and then I had it edited and my editor was saying, oh, we need a chapter for this and we need to explain this better, I was able to go back after writing several books, because I've written several. I'm just revising them. I was able to go back into my first book and write in 2 full chapters, putting myself back into that time frame. And I was told that not everybody can do that. And it's not easy. But I don't find it that difficult. I don't find it all that difficult for me.
First off, I don't think I could ever write a book. I don't think I've got that talent. But second off, if I ever did, I don't think that I could go back and forth between different subjects. I think I would get lost. So that's really awesome that you can kind of shut off one, go to the next, shut that one off, come back. So that's very cool.
Sometimes I have to read what I've written before. It's like when you read a book and then you close it and you put it away for a while and then you come back to it after like a longer period of time and you open it, it's like, oh, what was happening before this? So you have to go back a chapter and read that. Sometimes I have to do that too. But it's more of a frame of mind. If I'm in the Callum Walker series frame of mind, I can write Callum Walker series, write in that book. If I'm in this other book, if I'm in this other frame of mind for this other novel that I'm working on, then I can write that one. It's more of a frame of mind for me.
Interesting. So getting into that frame of mind, shutting the other one. That's very neat. Very cool. Now, when you introduce the Jax Foster character, Jax became a pivot. I can't talk now. a pivotal character in the Fractured Veil. What was the process in actually developing his character?
I needed somebody to counter Callum's seriousness, and I was creating this character to be a secondary main character. There's a connection between the two of them that I wanted to create, so that they both carry forward, because I liked that opposites attract and they're feeding off each other. And even though it's fun to have Callum walking around this magical realm alone, he kind of also needs an accomplice. Otherwise, he's just talking to himself, and after a while, it gets a little bit weird.
Very neat. So kind of having that secondary character. Now, you also have, is it the furries and the harpies that are in the series?
Yeah, the Furies are the deities. They're the goddesses of vengeance and retribution. And the Harpies, and they're two different types of characters that are not nobody's really explored them too much. So I thought that would be kind of intriguing. I'd introduced the Harpies in the second book, and then I introduced the Furies in the third book, but there's a connection between them.
Oh, okay. So, the Furies and the Harpies, so they present significant challenges for Callum. How did you craft kind of compelling antagonists that would drive that story?
Oh, I don't really know what my process was. I guess it's I had a fun time in my first book jumping into my inner bad guy or inner bad girl or whatever when I was writing the bad guys. So I'm trying to think, what are their motivations? Put myself in their heads, and just also realizing like they probably had a history. They probably weren't born bad or evil or wicked and stuff. So what would have transitioned them to that point? Once I get that history in my head, it's a lot easier to write a bad guy.
Oh, interesting. That's never cool. Now Callum has endured some considerable trauma, I believe, correct? Um, how do you approach writing about trauma and recovery in the books? I know we had talked about a little bit using some of your previous work history. Is that how you tied all that in?
Sort of. I I feel that I'm trying to make this character as realistic as possible. And after all the stuff that happened to him in the first book and the second book, by the time I was writing the third book in the very first chapter, that we see him in, because we don't see him in the very first chapter of the book, but we see him early on. I stopped to realize, I was like, wow, my character has post-traumatic stress, which is totally believable. I like to present those mental health issues, and kind of, because I know people are struggling with things, especially in this day and age and stuff like that. So I think it helps people to sort of empathize with the character and connect with them a lot more if they're more real. I think it would be silly, I don't think it would be realistic if my character went through all of this, almost dying, having to go through all this strife and struggles and stuff, and not have some sort of emotional damage or mental health issues from this.
I love how every part of what you've written is so methodically thought about, and it all ties together while you're using real world experiences with mythical and all these different storylines. So I love how you tie it all together and tie it back around, and it makes it, like you said, relatable to people.
Yeah. I mean, we're real people. I had my mom was telling me early on to write about what you know. Well, I don't know much about fantasy worlds. I can envision them and stuff, but I do know, about emotions. And as people, I mean, come down to it, we all have emotions and we all express them and feel them different ways, but they're all basically stem from the same source. And if I'm feeling what my character is feeling, then I'll connect with them a lot more. And I feel my readers will too.
Yeah, most definitely. Now through the whole process of writing this series, have you ever kind of altered the storyline or any of how you've presented the characters, or have you always stuck with the original thought that you had?
No, my first draft of my first book was, there was a lot of things that were completely different in my mind than what it turned out to. It's just some things change in the editing process. Like, yeah, that's not going to happen like that. Or you killed this character off, but you didn't do it a good way. Let's go back and do this. Or maybe you shouldn't do that scene that way because, or maybe you shouldn't use that word. Those things. So there's quite a few things that changed from my original draft to what is now out. Just because it didn't flow, or my editor loved the character so much that don't kill them off. And then I have to write them back into the story somehow.
That's cool. Now, has the main base storyline always stayed the same?
Yeah, and I know I always start my books, same thing with my series. I know where to begin, I know where to end, and I know approximately what needs to happen in the middle to shift it towards there. That's where I start, and that's where I am with my series. That's where I am with each book, and that has never changed.
Gotcha. Okay. So where do you see the series heading in the future?
Well, I'd be giving away the ending of the series, but it's going to become more epic and more dark and more, the stakes are going to be higher, and my character is going to find moments of happiness amidst this darkening threats that are imposed on the realm and the other side of the veil where we live as well.
Do you think you're gonna add any more characters along the way?
There'll probably be here and there. I have a few there's a few more bad guys that are going to come up. There's some that are just going to become badder. There's some that are being brought back, and revisiting their arc, in the subsequent books. Um, I don't just add characters willy nilly. There has to be a purpose. Um, they have to have some importance to the moment and to that story and to the arc.
Now, we had talked a little bit earlier about maybe someday the Callum Walker series becoming some kind of movie series. If it did, who would you want to play the main characters?
Um, oh, that's a loaded question because if I tell you who I imagine them playing the characters, then people can no longer visualize who they believe the characters look like in their heads. Um, I guess that said, I've always kind of envisioned Jax as being like a uh, Henry Cavill. Is that Henry? Is it Harry? I can't remember the name, but the guy who he played like a cameo Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine. I cannot remember his name for the life of me. But for Callum, I always envisioned kind of a young Ewan McGregor, like Star Wars 1 Ewan McGregor kind of thing, or younger even. So, yeah, that's just what I envision. But other people envision differently. So you know, that's why I've always hesitated to give names, but that's what I envision. So I'm hoping other people don't just start envisioning what I'm envisioning and they continue to imagine these characters however they like.
I'm sure with the magnitude of detail that you put into the series that people will still envision it the way they want to envision it.
Yes.
Uh, um, Now, what kind of advice would you give to anybody that's kind of starting out their career in writing or wants to become an author? What kind of advice would you give to them?
It's definitely a marathon, it's not a race. Um, you're not gonna become rich as an author, unless you're extremely lucky, or you know somebody. Um, you're doing it because you want people to read your story. You're doing it because it's your passion. And don't lose sight of that. Because if you start writing, other people, not everybody is going to like your work. And if you try to write so that you're pleasing everybody, you're going to lose part of your creative muse. It's not going to be yours anymore. It's going to be their creations. So just stick true to your vision.
Some good feedback. Now, would you say it's harder to write in fantasy, do you think, or easier to write in fantasy?
I think it's a lot easier to write in fantasy. I've also dabbled in other genres. I've written sci-fi, I've written horror, I've written thriller, suspense, anything action adventure wise. For me, it's not a problem, but not everybody is into that genre, right? So that's where it becomes it's kind of it's for me, it's not hard to write fantasy because I have very creative thought processes. But other people are better at writing like fictional history or romance. And those are areas where I just I can't write those areas. I can't write mystery either because I can never figure out who done it, you know? Um, and to each our own. I mean, I always say that if everybody could, if everybody was the same, it'd be a very boring world.
That's very true. And I would say that if you have a very vivid imagination, it would probably be easier to write in fiction.
hmm Absolutely. Yeah. And fantasy just gives you that freedom because there's a lot of area for crossovers from all the different genres.
Yeah, that's so cool. Now, how do you maintain your creative energy just on a day-to-day basis?
Um, well, the environment that I'm in is very helpful. If I'm in a messy room, I can't concentrate. If there's a lot of distraction of noise, I can't concentrate. So I have my, sound dampening headphones that I'll put on. I can do my best writing when my kids are away from the house because by golly, they are the noisiest kids I've ever met. um but it never fails. It's like I have to put my phone on silent. At times I have to leave it in the other room because as soon as I get into the zone and I'm writing and it's like ding 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 and I'm like, ugh, stop texting me, another email, another alert. Oh, and it really interrupts my writing process, so I have to eliminate these distractions in order to be able to do the best writing.
Now, what has writing the Callum Walker series kind of taught you about yourself?
Especially with this third book, I pushed myself to get out of my comfort zone, and I think it made me a better writer. And I can see myself improving as I go along. Um, and that surprises me. I didn't go to school to become a writer. I was more of a science and math geek. I didn't really pay attention in English. In fact, it was not my favorite subject. I hated it. But I love storytelling. And I wish I had paid attention and stuff, but I'm learning that I can still become a good writer, and I'm learning that I can improve different aspects of myself with my wordsmithing if as I go, if I challenge myself. And I was really surprised. I did not. There were some scenes that and even in the fourth book that's coming out too. I really pushed myself in various areas, and it's made me better. And I was really surprised about that because I was worried it wouldn't. I was worried it would just be a disaster.
I've talked to a bunch of authors, and I keep seeing a reoccurring theme that A lot of authors have never had any official schooling for writing, never gone to school to write, to be an author. It's kind of happened over time, and it seems like those are the most successful people.
Well, I'd like to think maybe one day I'm going to fit into that group. But that's why honestly, that's why they have editors. So, I mean, there's a lot of people out there. There's still stigma amongst about self-published authors that the work they produce is subpar. But that's because there's a lot of self-published authors who don't want to invest in a good editor, and then they publish work that is not well written, or it could be a good story, but the grammar is bad and it's hard. Some people can't get past that. But then there's also a lot of authors who are self-published who do get a good editor, who do all the same things that you would be doing for traditional published authors, and the stigma kind of holds them back. You don't need to do training to become an author. You just have to have a good instinct for creative instinct.
Yeah, I love to hear that, and I love to see it. Because like I said, I've talked to a bunch of people that have just not had any kind of formal training, and I've read a lot of books, and they're awesome. They really are. It's cool to see that. Now, do you self-publish?
I do.
Oh, awesome. So you're no publisher, no nothing. You just have your editor and go
From
from
being a
there.
mom to learning all about this, all about what should I do? Okay, what's the next step? What's the next step? I Google a lot. And so I've actually helped, like I've actually had some aspiring authors. Every book signing I go to, I meet a new aspiring author. He's like, how did you do it? What was the first step? What did you do here? And so I'll tell people what I did, and I'd be like, in all honesty, this is the journey I've been on. I maybe have not done it correctly, or maybe I've missed a step, or maybe I could have done it better. Um, but I can tell you what I did, those kind of things, and maybe start them on their own path.
That's cool, and I will say there is nothing like Google nowadays. You can find the answers to anything you want on Google.
Yes.
That's very awesome. Now, um, with all these awesome books that you've created, the series, it sounds like you have been pretty successful in doing this. How do you describe success in your own words if you had to describe it to somebody?
For every person who is messaging me or telling me that, hey, I've read your books, I loved them, that to me is success. For tax purposes, I count how many books that I've sold and add up the totals and stuff like that. But I'm not making a profit. I'm not making money. In fact, I'm spending more than I'm making. I'm doing this because I want people to enjoy the story that I've written.
I love how you said success is just people commenting and saying they love reading your books.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Now, if somebody wants to purchase your books, where can they purchase your books from?
The links to all my books with the synopsis telling you what every story is about, it's on my website, www.jmshawauthor.com. There's links to amazon.ca, amazon.com. They're available on print. They're available on Kindle. They're also on Kobo. They're on Barnes and Noble. They're an ebook through Barnes and Noble if you're in the US. And if you're in Alberta, they're available in 10 different Indigo chapter stores. Indigo and Chapters is kind of our Barnes and Noble of Canada.
Oh, okay, cool. Now, are they audiobooks yet?
Not yet. I have had a lot of people requesting, but being that I have to research it all and such, I'm still looking into how I can do that. I don't want to just, halfway do something. I research the heck out of it until I figure it out.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Do you have any other social media, or is it just your website?
Oh, my website has links on the bottom of my page to my Instagram and my Facebook. There's also a link to Goodreads, so you can see my books and see what other readers have said about them.
Awesome. When do you think your next installment, your fifth book, is going to come out?
I'd like to have my fifth book come out end of next year. My fourth book is coming out. It's available for pre-order on ebook, and it'll be released for ebook and print in June 1st of this year. As I'm working through my fifth book, I'm hoping to have it finished and released by the fall of next year.
Ah, cool. So hopefully very soon.
That said, I was hoping my fourth book would have been released by fall of last year. And it was delayed because family and challenging myself and just a bunch of different things, and it was all piling up, like the 20 pounds of straw that kind of weighing me down.
That's okay though, because sometimes the weight makes it even better when someone reads it.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, it's been great to have you on today, Jennifer. We can't wait until your fourth book comes out. Can't wait until the whole series is over to see how everything turns out.
Yes. I'm excited to get to the end of it as well.
But it's been great to have you on today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for telling us all about the book and kind of how you started out and your path towards what you've done so far on it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It was a pleasure to have you on. Everybody, please go to Jennifer's website, buy all of her books right now, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you soon again.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to.
Awesome. Well, everybody, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Conversations Ignite. See you next time.